All right. So, welcome everybody. I am so glad you could all come on such a frigid, cold day and had a good Christmas season, I hope, as well. So, today, like I just said, I've been so looking forward to this conversation today because I feel like it's just very timely in a lot of our lives with toddlers and littles that we just don't always know what to do with and how to handle them. So, our speaker today is Shelley Fernando, and I like to say she's an easy conversationalist who just exudes encouragement and joy and has a smile that lights up the room. And she's been such a huge source of encouragement for me in my life, and I just so greatly appreciate her. And I know one thing, it's so funny since I started homeschooling, there's one question I think of probably the most often is just, how did Shelley do it? So to help you get to know her a little more is just, she is a happily married mom of 9, and she has homeschooled for 20 plus years and enjoys encouraging moms and encourages them to live God's grace in their daily lives, so which I think is a very accurate statement for you. So thank you so much, Shelley. I'm excited to hear what you have to say.
That works out. I tend to move around a lot when I talk and move my arms around, so hopefully I don't knock it off, but if I do, I'll just keep that one. So thank you for the nice introduction. That was very sweet. And I right now, so we have 9 children, and my oldest is 30, and she lives in Burlington with her 2 daughters. And we have 2 of my boys live with their sister's boyfriend in Council Bluffs. We moved over to Trainers, which is right close to Council Bluffs, so they all share an apartment there, a bachelor pad. So I saw it when they first moved in, but I have not gone over this, and that would be, I would just need to clean it or something, so I just stay away. But they visit us often because I give them food, so they come over often. And then at home I have a college student who's in between. She's going to go to UNI next year, and she did two years at the community college when we were here in Burlington. And 4 children, currently children, young adult people type, living at my house that I homeschool. So that's where I'm at. We homeschooled most of the way through. Our oldest was in school, in public school for a little bit, and she came home with a few strange things, and we said, okay, I really don't like that. And they weren't incredibly bad, they just weren't what we would want. And then we were introduced, when we moved to Eldora, we were introduced to a Christian school. So my oldest 2 girls went there for a year, and then by then we had 4 children who were at home, and I realized we were not going to be able to afford that for very long. So we started homeschooling. And Jim's sister actually homeschooled, but she pulled her older kids out of school because they actually weren't learning. She had one high school student who could barely read, and so she thought, well, I can't do worse than that. So she pulled them out and brought them home. So I just thought it was strange, and that was my introduction to homeschooling. But once we decided to do it, I still thought it was a little strange, actually. But it was very nice to be able to enjoy all of our children, and we've seen many benefits from that over the years, just being able to have them around. All of them are, some homeschool families there's just so much academic and musical ability, and they make the rest of us feel kind of awkward. And I'm in the rest of us group. So they're not, I have some good students, and I have several with learning disabilities, and I have one son with autism, and I have some anxiety people, and we just have nothing to be overly. There's nothing humanly prideful about what our family has done, but we've seen a lot of benefit with their relationships and with their relationship with us and ability to stay close. In fact, for 3 years we did have them at our children at the Christian school in Burlington. Great Rivers, they love that place. It was really where our family needed. They ministered to us for those years. But I can see the difference bringing them home again and rebuilding those relationships, and that was a really great and godly place for them to be, and I super appreciate that. But you could see the relationships strained, and different ideas that maybe filtered in that maybe wouldn't have otherwise. But we're all still sinners, so we come up with our own bad ideas, I guess. So anyway, so that's where we are. My oldest is 30 and my youngest is 12. I was going to say 11 when I was practicing, and somebody corrected me, and apparently she wants to get older like everybody else. So I was hoping not to do that, but so our topic is about entertaining youngers, littlers. I don't know, what do you guys call them in your family? I always call them the littles. Is that kind of what you kind of the littles? And now my littles are actually the bigs too, so I don't know. But so entertaining them. But I wanted to start out with Psalm 127, 3 through 5, and I'll read it. You don't have to go there. And it's, children are a heritage from the Lord, offspring a reward from him. Like arrows in the hands of a warrior are children born in one's youth. Blessed is the man whose quiver is full of them. That just speaks to how that children are a blessing from God, a gift from God, and that's an important place to start when you're thinking about children, because that's not how our culture looks at them. I also had Matthew, and now I've got 18:5. And whoever welcomes one such child in my name welcomes me. And just how valuable children are to God, and how we handle our children is shows our relationship with God. I mean, really clearly. And so that's an important place to start. It's a mental shift because the culture considers children at best an inconvenient and interruption, like an interruption to your career, to your lifestyle, to your freedom, to all these kinds of things. And it's really hard to maintain in this culture, even in godly places where people are trying to live God's best life for them, God's blessing for them. It so easily, the culture's view of children, it seeps in. So we've been in a church, not around here, but a church that they would really believe themselves to be very welcoming. But once we had many younger children, it was not easy to go to events, and it did not feel real welcoming. And that's a godly group of people who really were trying to live. They weren't trying to be unkind, but it's so easy for us to forget and our mind to shift to just considering it an inconvenience or a hardship. And because it is hard, okay, it is really inconvenient. Having children really super is inconvenient. That's why it's so hard to remember their blessing, because it's true. What the world thinks is true. It's true. But it doesn't mean that it's bad. And our culture is just anything that's uncomfortable is bad. And you know what? It's not. It's okay to be uncomfortable, and it still can be a blessing. It's okay to be inconvenienced in a huge way, and it's still a huge blessing. But we need to remember and stay with that it's a blessing part. So instead of saying how to manage our younger children, I would like to say how to enjoy our younger children while we're still getting other things done. And it's not a judgment on, I mean, there's so much managing that goes on, just staying home with your children and trying to homeschool. There's a lot of managing, so I'm not judging that word at all, but I just want us to try to make that mental shift to valuing and enjoying the time we have, not just trying to get through it. Because there are survival days, there just really are. And it's not that I haven't had many myself, or that I don't expect you guys to. But it is important that we get back to it's a blessing, and how can we enjoy it, even the hard moments. So actually, not written in my notes, but I know sometimes, even when we would have the flu go through our house, I would actually enjoy it, and because it was so easy to know what we were going to do for the next few days. Like, I knew I was going to do laundry, and I was going to try to get soup and crackers in everybody, and that was it. And it really kind of cleared my plate of everything else. So I actually, just to simplify it, I just really did enjoy it. So I think there's something you can enjoy no matter what the situation is. There's things you can find to enjoy. So yeah, just making that mental shift. So my first kind of thing that we did, that I'm sure you guys all do, enjoying your littles when you're homeschooling, is just have them with you. wear them in a carrier and have them with you all the time. A carrier doesn't give you total hands-free, but it gives you a little bit of hands-free, and it includes them, and it includes, your other children get to see them included. It's all a good benefit. It reminds me of when Daniel was a preschooler, he drew a family picture like they have him do, and it was stick figures. And the little baby who was Abby at the time, was out of my stick figure hip, was this little stick sticking out of my hip. And I thought, that is so true. That's exactly what that looks like and feels like. She's just always right here with me, everything we do. And while sometimes that felt felt heavy and felt like a hardship, I had awesome arms then, so it was kind of awesome for that. But the other thing is that there was some time around my sixth child, I would get, by the time I had my sixth child, my oldest one was 12, and it was not a pretty age for her. And we did not have a pretty time with that. And I would get frustrated because I wouldn't be able to sit through Sunday school and church, a whole Sunday school and church service, ever. And I thought, this is going to be this way forever, because, when you have that many children, it kind of has been that way for a long time. But right around my sixth child, I realized it really doesn't last that long. And then I also had a 12-year-old who I realized didn't care if I was even in the same church with her, honestly. And I thought, how precious, this little one, I have this little window, and it will end, and she'll grow up to be 12, or it was a he then, and he'll grow up to be 12. And then, by God's grace, I had some more, and I got to enjoy that time. But after the sixth one, I enjoyed that time. I enjoyed, even though instead of looking at it as missing out on church or missing out on Sunday school, I just enjoyed that they needed me, because that doesn't last forever. It's just when you're in the middle of it and you're sleep deprived, it just feels like forever. But really it's not, and they grow up, and just trying to cherish that time. And I remember people my age, when I was younger, saying, just treasure it, you'll treasure it when you're, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I'm sure that's true, but I'm tired. I can't enjoy all this. And so my advice is still sort of similar, but enjoy what you can. Really just remember, it really doesn't last forever. And praise God. There's some parts of it that just you couldn't do forever. So I was sleep deprived for like a decade. And it's so nice to sleep through the night now. And you'll get there, and it's so great. And I do love that. And I wouldn't really want to change that. But, so including them, I have another story. My husband would use for our toddler, Daniel at the time, he would put him in a back carrier and mow the yard with him. And it was such a precious way, the neighbors liked it, and it was a precious way for them to spend time safely together. And it also, he still loves, he's an adult and he still comes and mows our yard. So I think that was implanted early. So including them does help give them, it makes them useful actually, in a selfish way, but it does help them feel part of a lot of things and learn a lot of things that you just don't have to teach them later. They're just part of. So I'd encourage you that way. Also, I would remind you that, because I always reminded my husband when he had the kids for the weekend, or the older girls when they babies, that you need to choose the activity or you will be putting out fires the rest of the day. That's just the truth. You need to, or you'll be cleaning up messes. Hopefully not literal fires. Like that only happened once. I took a nap and then I left a candle going and did not use candles for a long time after that. But I found somebody had started a sucker on fire. And then later when I was telling one of my older kids about that, just today I learned they also set their stuffed animals on fire. And I never knew that. So yeah, don't leave candles burning when you're taking a nap. But for sure, the point is choose the activity, because what they come up with is not what your choice would be, and you'll be cleaning it up. Another event that happened is I was at the table with 2 preschoolers and a baby, and my 4th grader, I asked him, he's the one with autism, and was not put in charge of the children very often. I had to go to the bathroom. Even good homeschool moms have to go to the bathroom sometimes. So I go to the bathroom, so I said, can you watch these guys? We're just at the table. And he said, yeah, sure. So I go to the bathroom, start doing my business, and I get a frantic pounding at the door. And I was like, what? And he said, they're coloring on the baby. And so I hurried up, and I came running out, and he was gone, and the kindergartner was gone, and one of the preschoolers was gone. But the baby was in a high chair at the table, colored on. I mean, it was beautiful artwork right there. And the other preschooler had this big cupboard of all the homeschool and craft things, all that in there. And she had her back to me. And even to this day, I said Naomi, I said her name. And I could still, that scary music when something bad's about to happen. I could hear that in my head as she turned around. And I saw the most evil, scary, like clown face colored on her face. And I think it was washable, but it still took a little bit. And that is when I learned to put markers up high, higher than preschool level. So, but yeah, that was another time I did not exactly choose that activity. Like that's not something we'd ever practiced, coloring on the children. But so yeah, another thing that helped me, especially with the youngers at home when I had littles, was to remember to fill up especially the youngest ones, fill up their love tanks right away in the morning. Just spend that extra few minutes hugging them, listening to their weird stories or weird dreams, and loving on them and kissing them, and because it fills their little tanks, and then they can be content for a little longer. And it's not like spend an hour with them. It's like just make sure you touch them. The worst thing that happened to me was, or it feels, even now it feels worse, is I called the doctor because one of the children, she was maybe 5 or 6, she was just not acting well, and so by afternoon I finally called the doctor and they asked, well, is she warm? And I realized I had not even touched her that day. Like, I should know whether my 5-year-old is warm to the touch, and I hadn't even touched her, and I thought that should not happen. In my sister's house, she's always loving and hugging, and they say, I love you, and I love when they visit, because even her adult son, he walks in the room and he'll say, I love you, Michelle. I love you too. It's so wonderful. Well, that's not exactly how I taught my children. So, yeah, I didn't touch them until afternoon sometimes. So just make sure, it is better to make sure and just fill their little love tanks. And some people are really good at that, like my sister. And some people just have to remind themselves, like it has to be on a to-do list. And I love my kids, and I don't feel guilty about that now, that I have to remind myself to tell them, or that I have to remind myself to touch them. That's just ADD, and it helps me with other things, but not that. I just have to put that on the list. So don't feel bad if you have to put them on the list. It doesn't mean you're a bad mom. It just means you have a lot going on. Just remember to touch them, okay? The other thing is scheduling. I'm going to talk about scheduling, and I don't know where you guys are with that. I was avidly against scheduling for many years, and I realize now it's because I just enjoy being surprised as everyone else about what happens, and the excitement of something new every day. And so long about number 5 and number 6, I realized, well, there's enough chaos and new things every day that I don't need to add to it. I should have a few things scheduled and decided ahead of time. So that's when I learned to schedule in homeschooling, but even our things, to make sure I was getting things done. The 2 schedules that kind of schedules that kind of work for me. One is the scheduling by half-hour increments, the managers of their home. If you're considering buying that book at all, and you really, it did a lot for me. And it just helped walk through the scheduling process in a really good way. And I have a friend who loves schedules, and that's her thing, and she loved the book too. So it has a wide managers of their home. Thank you. And it's super, super wonderful how she walks you through a schedule, if that's something that you need help with. I think that the key thing that I learned from her that I had not been doing is, from that book, is you schedule your babies and your toddlers too, so they're not just free agents. I don't know why that had never occurred to me. I thought they would just move along the day with us. Well, They don't. They come up with their own things to do that involve starting suckers on fire. So yeah, you want it, or coloring up into evil clowns. So you want to make sure you're on that. But the other kind of schedule that I've had success with, and this is more in the 5 kids or less range, is kind of more of a flow of events. I just had, this is what I want to get the core subjects done before lunch, or for years and years, we had a 10:30 snack, and I would try to get a certain amount done before 10:30, and then after. And with fewer people, that was pretty could accommodate what we needed. It also, there were years, like when I was nursing Abby, we would just, whenever I didn't have her on a strict schedule, kind of a schedule-ish, and she would, when she needed to nurse, was generally around the same time every morning, so that would be our spelling time. And I had 2 elementary children, and I could just interrupt them and say, okay, we're gonna go, she needs to eat, we're gonna go to spelling now. And so I would arrange and it's kind of backward scheduling, but for that year, it actually was very effective. So if that helps anybody out, just going with the baby and doing with the baby, and that applies to nap time too. You plan the more, where you need your hands and attention, planning those activities for their nap time. And then just be flexible in getting things done. Probably means you're not going to get everything done, but that's okay. You're going to have a happy baby and happy children, and that's so much better. So there was one year that we tried to use Sunlight curriculum, which I love. I am not bashing them at all. But it was not the year for us to do that. It's a literature approach, and you do a lot of out loud reading, and they're supposed to be able to read. And the year we had that, somebody had given us a year of that, and we had at least 2 preschoolers and a kindergartner and 2 younger elementaries and 2 older elementaries, and there are just not enough naps in the day to read that much stuff. So, and my readers that was for was not a strong reader either. So you have to think through your curriculum. There's lots of curriculum choices now. In fact, there's too many. It can be very overwhelming, but the ones that include everybody together are Father's World and Heart of Dakota kind of does that. You can do groups of children together, and that is what I would recommend. It's not super hardcore book work for sure, but they're getting a lot of learning and you're getting a lot of family time. So just while you're picking out your curriculum, think about who all you can maybe group together, or who all, how you can include toddlers can very easily be included in some of those curriculums have fun things to do. So yeah, just as you're picking up curriculum, be sure to consider that. Also, I think I got this from Baby Wise, if somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but is instituting a room time or crib time or blanket time. Are you guys familiar with that concept at all? But it's not just so you can, it's a great tool, not just so you can keep them busy and quiet for, you can get things done. It's more for specific small bursts of time that they can be taught to entertain themselves in their room or in an enclosed like the crib, or so that you have your hands free for 10 or 15 minutes. It's not an all-day event, but for sure it's a great tool we used as the children got older. We used room time actually was my nap time, and after lunch I would go take a nap, and then the older kids would go to their room and read. And the younger ones would, either if they were napping or they were to be quiet looking at books too. So, I mean, for me it was super valuable. It can be applied to lots of different situations. Or in an emergency, you get a call, you need to take care of something really quick. If you can announce room time or announce blanket time, and they're all able to settle down pretty quick. But that's kind of advanced. You can't go, if you've never done that before, don't go Monday and go, we're doing room time, and expect it to go well. It won't. But it takes a couple weeks to establish it. But my girlfriend, she used to call it baby boot camp. Usually when she was potty training, she would take a week off of her life, kind of just clear in her schedule of other things and not get together with me or anybody else, and and she would just focus on training issues that she needed to train. And I found that to be a good mindset if we're trying to start a new routine or a new schedule, or there's behaviors that have popped up. Just taking a week off and telling other people it's baby boot camp week, then it gives you kind of the extra time and mental energy that you need to just address some of those issues, or try to establish a new routine and not feel bad about it, because you just can't really you can't try something new, have it falling apart, and try to go do a bunch of stuff and feel good about it. Well, you can totally do that, you can do whatever you want, but it doesn't usually go well. It never did for me. So that's something a good tool to use too. So another thing that we did while I had younger ones is that, and this went with the half-hour schedule, I would schedule older children with younger children. Now this worked out really great for when you have older, like preteens and things, but it also worked out with a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old could spend, you have to know your children, and you have to for sure expect to train and expect to work through that, but scheduling an older child with a younger child helps. It helps give you some free time when it's established. It helps give you some time you can focus on whatever teaching you need to do with another child. It helps build the relationship between those two siblings, which has been fabulous to watch. The kids came up with some really great games that they would do. There was one that my teenager, she was a teenager, the 4-year-old, they got put together, and they both liked fashion and things. So the 4-year-old would pick outfits out of her closet for her to try on, like a life-size Barbie or something. And they would do that and entertain themselves that way for a long time. So it was really precious, the things that they would come up with to do. Also, my oldest daughter would very, very frequently, she loved to take pictures. So her time with the younger ones would become photo shoots, which is awesome for me because I never took pictures. So that worked out to my benefit too. And I super appreciated that. And what a beautiful time for her to use one of her skills. And I didn't come up with that, she came up with that. So just being able to put them together. Typically, okay, so if you're working through the half-hour schedule thing, you see where your gaps are and where the little ones are free agents, and then you kind of try to plug them in. And with an older child and if their age gap isn't very big, you might think of like 15 minutes and not a whole half hour. And generally, I would have the older child pick the activity so that we could get some buy-in and some excitement, because the younger child is usually more than happy to spend time with an older sibling. And then I also sold it as an opportunity for a break, because older kids usually have more school, and if they spent time with the younger one, that was a half-hour break where they didn't have to do school, and they could do something fun. I also just had a list of activities hanging up usually on our schoolroom door, but so that they would have ideas of things to do. And that's the list that I gave you earlier. Those are some of our activities that we typically have. I would encourage you to even brainstorm with your older children things that they like to do or would like to see on the list. Because sometimes there's things that you don't necessarily want to get out, like Play-Doh. I know not everybody loves Play-Doh, and or crafts. I know not everybody's a craft mama, but if you had just one box and just one half hour that they could do that, they would be delighted with it, and it would be pretty simple to pick up because it's not something that's out all the time. So that is, let's see, I think, and forgotten toys. Sometimes you get toys that get buried or have too many pieces. Well, there was one year we had a doll. It was a weird doll. I don't even know how to explain it, but she had plastic pieces that, like, her dress would fit on her. I don't know. I don't even know what kind of doll it was. But it was so annoying to have those pieces all over. You couldn't really enjoy it. So I put it in just a shoe box size box up in my closet, and the kids would remember to ask for it, and then it was a special treat, and you didn't lose all the pieces because that's what you were playing with, and then they would bring it back and I would put it up. And that's a great activity to have for an older and a younger. And was I afraid of them forgetting it in my closet? Well, no, it was a favorite toy, so I didn't have to worry about them forgetting it. But if you do that and it gets forgotten, it's not a favorite toy, and you can feel free to let go of it because they won't forget what they really want. And most of us have enough toys. I mean, I did when the kids are younger, that you can pull some out and put them in a container, and then they're not out all the time, so they seem more special, and they're just for school time, or if you organize it so they're just for older and younger child time. It's however you decide to organize it, but having toys pulled out that are only for school and having them in bins with lids, or bins that are up high enough for them not to be in the general population, preschool height and higher, is super helpful. In that category is also having a craft bin. And I know, like I said, I know everybody's not a craft moms, or maybe your children don't like it. I know my boys did not care about cutting at all, and the girls would make everything a craft project. And I'm not saying put glue or glitter or Elmer's glue or anything like that in there. But there's some simple things like pipe cleaners and pom-poms and glue sticks or glue dots, things that don't make a high mess or are pretty easy. You can go to Dollar Tree and fill, not a shoebox, but a little bit bigger of a bin with craft stuff, and then it's a special treat, especially if you're not a craft mom and don't like all that stuff all over, then it's a special treat, and they're inexpensive items, so if they use all the googly eyes on one piece of paper, and then you hang it up for a while and then you throw it away, it's no big deal. I mean, it really, the investment is in their creativity, not their output. So just remember, you have, if they have created and it's all a big mess and you just throw it all away, it's already served its purpose. It is added to their creativity, and they've gotten free rein to do something fun that they don't usually get to do. So, I'm a big, I would really encourage craft bin. Where you guys are with that. Don't put glitter in it. Don't put glitter. You probably know that, but just in case. But almost anything else just is pretty easy to pick up. And tape, they love tape, and they could go through a roll of tape. So if it was just in their bin and they weren't getting, like I still hide my tape, but, and I have older kids, but they'll still do ding dong things with them. Why did you do that with my tape? I don't have it. So yeah, just give them their own tape. It's less than $1, and then they have their own tape to waste. So everybody's happy. So anyway, I really, do get a craft. If you get nothing else on my talk, do a craft bin, okay? It's my favorite. And it's still good for them. Even if they don't like crafts, most kids like pipe cleaners. Those are awesome. So do so many things with those. So, and then throw them away when they're a tangled mess. So I talked a little bit about organizing them in bins or totes and up high. Another idea that we've done over the years is the rolling drawers. Those make a nice way to organize things. I know most of us use them to organize our craft things or our, school things, but just having only one activity in each drawer and having it an assigned time to go pick something out of the drawer, or it for toddlers or preschoolers, it's so great if they have their own area where there's limited options, but something for them to do that they can do semi-independently. So that can be something that's assigned to do with an older sibling, but it also can be something that they can be taught to just go get something. You need to work with so-and-so, go get something out of your drawer. So that takes a little bit of planning, because you'll need to make sure there's something in the drawers. You can have it set up like a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday situation, or you can just have an AM and an afternoon thing, or just as needed, and they're not to touch it. Now, if you have a crawler that can open the drawer, that you might opt for, they have the little plastic drawers you could set up on a counter, and it's the same idea. You might have to help them get their worksheets out. Things that could go in there are like paint with water, or puzzles, or all those fabulous manipulatives. I always had a ton of manipulatives because I thought they were so fun, but then we didn't always get to them. It would be great for the drawers. The little ones could play with it, and it would be a treat because it's in the drawer. So, and it helped me. It helps teach independence as your preschoolers and toddlers up to preschool, it helps teach them to independently learn to work on something, but it also helped me to plan something, because I wasn't always actually on that, even though that's my rule. Choose the activity or you will be putting out fires. I didn't always follow my own rule, and so it was very important. So that made me organized, have an idea, and have something for them to do, and something that was fun, and something that was maybe not what I would pull out normally. So that helped a lot. I mentioned puzzles. Okay. And then, so with all these things, all these different ideas, whatever kind of stood out to you as something that you've tried in the past, maybe you could try again, or something that maybe you didn't think of that way, you need to give yourself just a little space to plan it, to make a plan for what will work. How can you adapt that to the age of children that you have, with the skill levels? What would you like to train them to do? And then organize a space. I know not everybody has oodles of space, but if you think of stacking bins with lids, you can probably get them not to get into it if you have it in a set-aside spot. If you have shelves that are up preschool, higher than preschool, that's ideal, but we don't usually work in ideal, do we? So however you can think to organize, hopefully that gave you some ideas. And don't forget it doesn't all have to be together. Like dress-up clothes are usually in a certain place and not in the schoolroom. So, even the list of activities that you have for your children to do together, the ideas there, they don't all have to be organized together, just as long as things are together so that you can easily pull them out and easily put them back. That would be my main, because I'm not someone who fusses with things or remembers to switch things out a whole bunch. I need the simpler system, the better. So think of it in terms of what would serve my purpose and be the simplest to get out and put back that I might actually do and follow through with. So sometimes it's that you can tweak your system or add a new system. Don't change everything up all at once. That's probably not going to work and probably not what you need. But adding something in with your already things that work, or maybe you just need to do some maintenance. You already have areas set up and you just need to maintain it, simplify it, get rid of some stuff. If there's too much stuff to enjoy, there's just too much stuff. And if you think you're going to put some away and put half their toys away and then switch them out, good, maybe you'll do that. But for me, that was just putting things in quarantine and then realizing, I guess we all forgot about those toys, we'll get rid of those. So just don't be afraid to get rid of stuff, because you'll enjoy, the less you have, the more you can just enjoy it. And so we're actually, it's helpful for everybody, and it's easier to pick up, easier for them to pick up, easier for us to pick up. So sometimes it's a system or maintenance that needs, but sometimes, and I haven't spoken about this at all yet, it's the willingness to put aside our plan for the day and accept whatever God has. And that happens a lot with littles, and it feels like you're never going to get school done if you just always do that, but that's not true. That it's this sweet balance, finding enough organization and enough scheduling that you can make it kind of, in a good process through your day without being married to the schedule, so that you're holding it so tight you can't just let it be what it needs to be. Because back to the beginning, children are not an inconvenience, and not the way God looks at them. Sometimes the way we feel about them, because it's an interruption to, had a perfect day. Would have got everything done if I hadn't had to stop to do whatever. But maybe the stopping to do whatever was the most important thing that God had for you that day. And it's so hard. I know a lot of people, when they find out that I have 9 children, they would ask, how do you get it all done? Even with less, and they find out you homeschool, and they're like, how do you get it all done? And I just smile and say, moms are busy. But I'm going to tell you the truth, because I can hear, is that I just don't get it all done. The truth is, there's probably a stack of dishes, and there's probably some hidden dirt, and I don't move my refrigerator, and I don't know what's in the back of some of my cupboards, okay? So, yeah, I just don't do it all, and that's okay with me, because I try to do the most important thing, and the most important thing is taking care of the children that God gave me. And it's so hard to get that lined up when you have a perfectly good schedule with perfectly good curriculum that you just want to get through. But there's no award in heaven. You're not going to get an extra crown for getting your curriculum finished. You're just not. So we have to remind ourselves to quit working for that. Quit working for that and do what's important. So think about your systems. Think about training. Make sure and give yourself plenty of time to train. Train yourself. Give yourself lots of grace. I have found that the reason we don't give other people grace is because we don't give ourselves grace. The grace that God already gave us, we just don't accept it. So give yourself grace. You may have been trying to do new things, or even trying to figure out the old things, even not adding anything new. And then that will allow you to give your children more grace as you're working through those things. So in closing, are you worried about getting everything all done? Or can we work at loving our children so well? And while we're at it, we'll get a few things done. So, all right, that's that. I did want to open it up for questions. If anybody had things that they thought of while I was talking that maybe we could all just talk through and work through. If you had any specific, what do I do about this?
Did you do ever you did quiet time or room time? You ever do like free play?
Oh, that's the rest of our life. Yeah. Yeah. When I
Was
did,
it structured or what you just kind of like?
no, when I did the half-hour increments, when I scheduled it like that, by afternoon when school was done and nap times were kind of over, that from like 3 to 5 was, I wouldn't say free for all. I wouldn't announce that, but yeah, that's what it was. And so I didn't schedule everything because I'm just not first of all, I kind of don't love schedules, but I also see the fruitfulness of it. We really did just get more done if I had a schedule. So yeah, totally free time. And it was usually evening and by the day of the week, Wednesday when you have church, there's okay, get everything picked up, help me with supper, that kind of thing.
Did you ever find that the 30-minute chunks were just too fast to switch between everything?
Oh, always, because we have some people who are really good at transitions and some people are really terrible at transitions. And so in that instance, I would think of the actual activity time as closer to 15 or 20 minutes. Still schedule it for the 30, but in your head adjust, okay, that's not really going to happen. So, and try to, and that's training too, trying to get transitions. But, the boys together playing with trains and they have a great big mess, they're not going to be willing to give that up. But if they know they'll get to do it again tomorrow, sometimes that smooths it, and you do have to play with it a little bit. And absolutely assume that you know your children who don't transition well, and don't expect them to because it's a good idea. So, yeah, it'll just be training.
So for rest time, I imagine that each kid did not have their own room in your house.
Not always.
So how did you do that? I find that very difficult to have a space for each child, and so they're not just fighting all the time.
And it depends on the two that you put together. We had, I'm trying to think, the smallest house that we had 3 bedrooms upstairs, and this is when we had the most kids at home, all 9 at home. So 3 bedrooms upstairs, but there was this basement finished room that was like this huge dorm room where all 5 and then 6 of the girls were. So yeah, we were just overlapped and all together all the time. So much fun. And so somebody would get, but for a lot of times I had a crib or playpen in my room anyway, so somebody would for sure get my room. In fact, there were, I think those years, one of the elementary kids just had a desk in my room, and just that was where her quiet time was. And then there was a living room, which was open to everything, so you need someone who didn't need boundaries as much, but they could be by themselves. And the bedrooms, and a crib, and then the older, by the time the older girls, they were fine with whatever. It wasn't that they had to be completely, they were used to not having complete quiet, so it was okay. So yeah, You have to use everything became a space. That was safe. Anything that was, obviously bathrooms are a bad idea, but for most kids. Candles, bad idea. Kitchen, don't. Dining room, depends on where it is. If you can see it. Obviously, also the preschoolers, you could put up a gate and keep them in their room, but you have to be within earshot or eyeshot. It depends on the kid, for real. Well, and even the ones you think you can trust. Yeah, you just gotta be in eyeshot with that too. Or moving around, put laundry away or whatever so you can check on them. Or actually, most of the time, if we had younger ones that weren't sleeping, I put somebody in charge of them so that I can nap. And they were happy to do it because mommy napped was a lot nicer mommy. So they were willing to help. It's amazing how much help you can get with that. So, I don't know, I think people fall into two camps, like they're afraid to have their older children do too much, or you feel criticized if you do, and then there's other families where you're like, wow, they could be helping and feel so much better about themselves if they were part of the solution. So a couple of my things with that is, one is, when my older girls, they got to that preteen age, and it was not pretty years, and I was pregnant a lot of those years, so that was not pretty either. It was a really bad, I don't have a lot of children because I was so good at being pregnant. That is not why that is. So I wasn't always nice, and I would get irritated with them because they would get irritated that I was irritated, and then they were no help at all, and they would disappear. And I taught them to say this really valuable thing. When they noticed me getting upset, they were to say, is there something I could do to help you? Because even just them saying that, even if it's through gritted teeth, it made me feel better. And sometimes there was something they could at least help with. They usually weren't the problem, but they weren't being helpful when they were completely capable of, which would, really be irritating to me. And that has helped so much over the years, teaching them to ask, is there something I could help you with? Now it kind of moved down the ranks, and then my son, he still does that to me to this day. But now, when he does it, I think, am I acting bad? Do I look like I need help? What's wrong? I thought it was nice. What's wrong? So then it became, over the years, it became an attitude check. I realized, oh, he's noticing something wrong, which, I think his wife is going to love. And I will never tell her the story about why he does that, but because I made that mistake with Audrey. And her boyfriend heard that story and knows why she does that. And he's like, that's why you say that to me? So, yeah. And so that's a lot of it. And also, I guess when I had younger children, my line was, I didn't have the girls very often, very seldom, they were not usually in charge of bathing them and putting them to bed. I would keep that for us. And then changing diapers. It's only in an emergency would I have them do that, because I think that's not the funnest part of parenting. They shouldn't have to do that. Can they be in charge of them for an extended period of time? Oh yeah, but I didn't expect them to raise the other children. And I think each family has to find where that is and know that no matter what you choose, somebody's gonna pick your own. So you and God and your husband figure it out and just be okay with it. You're already used to people thinking you're weird because you're in school, so it's okay. They can just think that. They're gonna anyway, so that's what I've decided. Anyway, feel free. Anything else we can talk about that might help? Did you find it helpful? Was there anything you could find maybe use? Okay, good.
I guess I have a question.
Okay.
I guess my struggle right now is having an 18-month-old boy who wants to be in everything, and every day it's, he's climbing on the table, he's spilling drinks, he's chewing the erasers off the pencil,
Oh, yeah.
all that fun stuff,
Yeah.
And sometimes he does well with being, strapped into his seat and then giving him something to do.
it's usually with their dolls or with, something that's kind of containable, kind of smaller, kind of quieter, and not as big and all this stuff. And so, I don't know, what popped into my head is don't expect to have a half hour with your other children. Maybe think of it in 15 minutes. Because if you can get 15 minutes of solid explaining or working through, and then go take a break and be with him and physically be present with him. Obviously, he's probably always with you, but mentally and physically, like, focus on him for a few minutes, and then you're just going to be transitioning between them all the time. But he'll grow out of it and probably do bigger things. And it'll be crazy. But yeah, for now, I think of it in smaller windows, and just knowing that, you could buy more things for him to do probably, but they're all going to require supervision, is my imagination. So you're and that's okay, but that's not going to get you the free time you think you want. The other thing is just, it was suggested to me a long time ago about, I used to be frustrated about not getting enough sleep. And so I would pray that I would get enough sleep at night. And then it was suggested, just pray that what you get is enough. And so I did that, and it did make a wonderful change in my attitude. That's what I would say with that. Don't pray that you get enough time with him. Pray that what you get is enough. Because God can work that way. And miracles happen after you say thank you. So just praise God and thank him for everything, and wait for your miracle. So hope that's helpful. It's just hard. It's just hard stuff. It's just not going to go smooth, and it's not supposed to. We wouldn't. If we could do it all ourselves, we wouldn't trust God. That's fun. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Shelley. I know I got a whole lot out of that. I really, really needed that. So our next talk will be on February 4th, and we will have a panel of ladies, and the discussion will be, if you could do it over again, what would you change? So I think that'll be a really great one. So make sure to sign up for refreshments if you can, and we will look forward to seeing you next month. So thank you.